Today on Substance Stories, I'm going to be talking about how do we understand our relationship with a substance and what to do about it. I want to talk about how do you know if your relationship with a substance is turned. I think this is a really good question that we should all be asking ourselves all the time. So there's a gap in between being addicted to something and having a normal healthy relationship with a substance. There's a gap called a sort of hazardous use of a substance. And that's, when I'm using it in an unhealthy way, maybe I'm chemically soothing, like I'm using the substance to soothe my emotional distress, but I'm not yet addicted. But it's certainly an unhealthy relationship. Evidence says that 21% of Australians are in the hazardous drinking ratio, but only a quarter of them actually know that their drinking is dangerous to them. So there is a large amount of us out there that are drinking dangerously or probably using other substances dangerously, but aren't even aware that we have an unhealthy relationship with substance. So here is my sort of quick checklist to see if you are have a bad relationship with a substance. First of all, you need it to see friends or family or to go out and have a good time. I think a wonderful thing to do, and I've talked to many people who do this, is they will go out absolutely sober every once in a while and they'll check, do I still like my friends if I'm sober, or am I just hanging out with these people because, I like to use whatever substance it is? The second thing is, how do you respond when someone asks you, are you drinking too much, or says you're drinking too much, or says you're using that drug too much? If you have a defensive reaction, if you get angry at even the suggestion, that's a huge warning sign for me. If you ask me, Rich, are your pants pink? I would say, no, they're not. They're black currently. I wouldn't say, how dare you ask me if my pants were pink? If I have that sort of defensive reaction, that's a huge warning sign for me. Thirdly would be, am I doing it alone? If you were using a substance socially and it's increasing, you're using it in a social manner responsibly, then that is normal use. If you're using it alone, if your drinking has started to become, I want to go home and drink rather than I want to go out and drink, that's a huge warning sign. That again, you're sucking into yourself. Fourthly, is it affecting your work or study or relationships? Are you noticing that you're rocking up to work hungover, or you're using in the morning? Again, huge warning sign. I think the tricky thing about this is we're very good at saying, oh, well, it's fine. It's just this morning I was bored or something. We've got to draw red lines in the sand about that. If you're doing something alone before you go to work or getting in the car, that's a huge warning sign. And then lastly, I think, is it affecting your physical health is a huge one. So I should say physical or psychological health is a huge one. Is your doctor saying, wow, your cholesterol or your blood pressure is pretty high. That's weird. You shouldn't have this, or, geez, I'm worried about your liver. That's a huge If you are getting any of those warning signs, then just stop. And if you can't stop, you've answered your question, right? If you need a substance, you don't know if you need it. But if you can't stop, even though you want to stop, that's a huge warning sign. People often ask me, okay, I've identified I've got a hazardous use of a substance, or I've identified I'm addicted to a substance. Can I try to return to having a normal relationship? I don't want to stop completely. I want to go back to how it was for the first 30, 40 years of my life when I had an absolutely normal relationship with this substance. The answer is no, you can't. I don't know why, and that sucks. But basically, once that door to addiction is open, it can't really be shut. There are a few cases, George W. Bush, for instance, was addicted to alcohol. He returned to drinking alcohol casually. But I'm not the president of America, nor am I ever capable of being so. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm on the same level as George W. Bush. The answer is, basically, once you have an addiction, you need to aim for absolute abstinence. That is the only way you can reset your relationship with the substance, because that substance, you are addicted to it. You have an illness. It's like a diabetic. Once you are a diabetic, you can never go out and eat 5 pavlovas. That sucks if you're a big fan of pavlovas, but that is reality. You have a medical illness, and that medical illness means you cannot have that substance. People in the 12 steps will often say something like they're allergic to alcohol, and I think they're meaning that metaphorically. They cannot have alcohol. They have an illness. That means they can't have alcohol. It can be a really tough thing. But again, to me, if you're getting resistance to that idea that you can never have any alcohol, never have any of that substance, it's a huge warning sign. Because like with all of what we talk about on this program, life is about being happy and about getting content, enjoyable life. And Abstinence isn't the goal. Having a happy, content, enjoyable life is the goal. But to do that, you need to be abstinent. The happiest and most content people I think I've met in my life have been in long-term recovery. I certainly don't need any substances to have a good time. I really, really don't think everyone else does. In fact, in my experience, they are very, very likely to make a good time a bad time, especially if you have an addiction. So ask yourself those questions. If you don't like the answers that you're getting, reach out for help. If you're not sure how to answer those questions, talk to your loved one and see what they say. Might surprise you, and maybe try and go a few weeks absolutely abstinent and see if your life's better or not. See if you can. Thank you so much.